Good morning. My name is Gisella Con. I'd like to try and better understand the conditions in Ramallah. Well, my sister, who was a gastroenterologist in the hospital San Camillo, had been invited by the Palestinian Authority to be a guest of honor at a meeting. I think it was the first meeting ever organized by the Palestinian Authority on gastroenterology in Ramallah. Well, the invitation, which was extended to her, and the expenditure for the trip were paid by the Palestinian Authority. Her plane ticket was bought by the Palestinian Authority. She could travel via Tel Aviv because Ramallah doesn't have an airport, or she could come via Amman. So I'd like to understand better what the situation is on the ground. It may be a more complicated situation than what was said here. When she was a guest of a Palestinian Authority, when she was at the airport, she said that she wanted to go to Ramallah because she was a guest, an invited speaker for a conference. So I wonder, if Ramallah is an occupied city, well, all this could happen along these lines, or legally speaking, from a legal perspective, the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, what's her role? Ramallah is to be viewed as an occupied city or not? It's just a question which I'm asking to clarify. Let's take some further comments or questions, and then we'll give the floor for the answers to the questions. My question is a question to Avram Burg. What he said and what he told us his thinking is very interesting, but I have a few questions for him. Well, what you said might result into civil war, revolt, or part of the armed forces, of the security forces. Another further reaction would be that from the Orthodox rabbis, because this is not a problem in terms of parliamentary majority. On the question of apartheid in South Africa and possible parallel between Israeli and South Africa in terms of apartheid, I was sort of involved in that fight, and I know that South Africa did away with apartheid because it had been destroyed by an internal war and an external war. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Nanni Colombo. I'm from Monterotondo. I'm part of the Roman network of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Just to give you one comment, in 2008, 2009, this municipality was the first municipality that sent a humanitarian mission to Gaza. So it was Rimini, Monterotondo, and some media people that went there to go to the Palestinian Human Rights Center. Just to put things in the proper perspective. So you see here one of our citizens of Monterotondo unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. We've had a very close relationship with the Palestinian Society for a long number of years. So I'm very happy to be here today because our two Israeli guests have given us a very clear overview of the situation there. So I'd like to pick up on what was said about the timing, the fact that we're talking about the reality and effects on the ground and the fiction that might exist on that. Well, for people that have been sort of focused on what's happening in the Palestinian society for a long time, you don't have to give us a precise sort of indication of the great many violations committed against this society, because we know that. We know very clearly exactly what is happening. It's important that we keep providing information about what's happening there, but then at some point we'll have to take action. I don't want to say, well, and that particular date there has been annexation, and then what happened after that. So I feel that there is a need, and this is a question for Abraham Burg when he talked about from Jordan to the Mediterranean. We should, how can we make it possible for Israel to become a state which complies with international law when Italy has the tour, the cycling tour start from Jerusalem. So, some Abraham Joshua said something along these lines in the auditorium here in Rome. But I have a collective question which I'd like to ask you all. What are we going to do to take matters into our hands? We keep seeing violations of international law there. So the only positive event, the World Social Forum, which was held in Bahia, was a workshop on militarization in the Brazilian favelas. So there has been sort of a clear connection between militarized life in Gaza. The workshop was organized by the World Social Forum, and the people attending the workshop felt that they were sharing this experience because the mechanism of militarization and full control of daily life of people across the board is the same. And and when it comes to armaments and control, well, the Israeli society is well equipped to deal with that. Are there any further comments or questions? If not, then let's begin with a guy.
So first, with regard to the situation in Ramallah, your sister or anyone else could very well be invited by any municipality in the same way that any municipality in Italy can invite international guests, but wouldn't be making the actual decisions, right? The decision with regard to who actually, the invitation is very nice and polite. It's always good to be invited. And sometimes the municipality even have some funding, as you were gesturing with your fingers. However, I don't think that anyone would have dared to say that a city that has a budget and is able to issue invitations is actually running a country or is anyway independent, right? That is not the case. The people that make the decisions with regard to entry into, not only into Israel, but also into Palestine are the Israeli authorities. The people that decided whether your sister will be able to, in fact, arrive in Ramallah is not the Palestinian Authority, is my government. And we make that decision not only with regard to your sister, but with regard to each and any individual that makes it into the occupied territories. And in fact, I'm actually still speaking. So I'm actually still answering. And in fact, there have been a growing number of examples, especially in recent weeks, in which Israel has a growing number of examples, especially in recent weeks, in which international human rights activists that wanted to visit the occupied territories were not allowed in. And I think I'm thankful for the question, because through your question, it gives me an opportunity to highlight an aspect that I think many people are not aware of, that when Israel makes the decision not to allow someone in, we're not just making a decision not to allow someone into our own country, we're also making that decision with regard to who can enter Palestine. And it doesn't stop there. We also make the decision who can exit Palestine. So if you're a Palestinian living in the occupied territories, including in Ramallah or in any other Palestinian city, then the authority that makes the decision whether you'll be able to go to Amman in Jordan or to go to anywhere else outside of the West Bank. That is the absolute arbitrary decision by Israeli authorities. And in fact, many Palestinians don't even know whether they are denied international travel or allowed international travel. So I'm just inviting you all to think of the other examples in history that you're aware of in which people are living under a regime that doesn't allow many of them, thousands of them, we don't know the exact figure, doesn't allow thousands of them routinely, absolutely routinely, to travel internationally. Just like pause and think about that aspect and the fact of how arbitrary it is. Most Palestinians in this situation, many of them don't even know whether they're going to be allowed or denied until they actually get to the Allenby Bridge, and that's the first place where they actually find out whether they'll be able to travel or not. So again, like I guess all of us, many of us, take international travel as something, well, not absolutely routine, but quite usual and part of like the natural exchange of ideas and thoughts, and also like just the ability to travel and visit relatives or beautiful places around the world, or go and study and so on and so forth. For Palestinians, this is absolutely not routine. This is absolutely something that is totally at the discretion of a government in which they have no political say. But of course, it doesn't end there. Palestinians living in Ramallah or in other cities defined as Area A are routinely tried in Israeli military courts. It happens all the time, no question about that. And Palestinian homes, including inside Area A, are routinely entered by Israeli soldiers. You do not, and just to give the military law background in that context, you might think, if I'm saying that soldiers are entering a home, that maybe there's a search warrant, maybe there's probable cause, all these like legal criteria that we're used to thinking about when we're thinking about like police entering the home of a suspect. So please put all that aside, because that's not the way things are run in the occupied territories. In the occupied territories, including in Ramallah and everywhere else, Israeli soldiers, by military law, do not need probable cause, do not need a search warrant, and by military law can enter, almost any soldier can enter almost any Palestinian home, anywhere, anytime in the occupied territories. And I'll finish with this. I just invite you to, let that sink in, but not just in the moment in which this is happening. That it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and 10 soldiers enter your home, wake up the family, take down the names of everyone, including the children, and so on and so forth. And if you want to actually, see that, you can go to the B'Tselem website, and you will see video footage by B'Tselem volunteers and others that just show that scene as it plays out, as it does so frequently in the occupied territories. But what I want all of you to think about is actually not about that moment. I want you to think about all of the other moments in which this is actually not happening, but you are like a mother or a father or a teenager, and you just know that your home is completely exposed, because this can happen any second. It's not happening now, but it can happen in half an hour. It can happen tomorrow night. It can happen in a month. Maybe it will never happen, but that is the way it is. You live all your life, if you're a Palestinian, with the deep knowledge that your life and even your home is so exposed. Yeah.
Grazie.
Thank you, Rahamberg.
So let's start with something very, with a smile, and then we go serious, okay? And don't take it personally. My mother never liked my politics, okay? So she never asked me directly, what am I doing or why am I doing? She always asked, what should I tell my friends you are doing nowadays? So one day she was 85, 86. She said, Avrum, what am I going to say, my friends, you are doing nowadays? So I said, Mom, you're so old. All your friends already passed away. You can ask me directly what I'm doing. And I tell you, if your sister has an issue, let her call me. Okay? But now, since you brought your sister into the room, let's talk about your sister. And this is, in a sense, who am I to give you answers? I'm not about finance, I'm not about security, I'm not about even travel agency. The only thing I can tell you, if your sister has some human, social, unique value that can improve the life of any individual out there, let her come because people need her. If there is a risk, if there is a whatever, yes, there are risks in the region. More risky, less risky than Palermo, I don't know. Okay, but yes, there are. In every situation there are. But the need for courageous people to come and share their human input for the benefit and for the sake of others is very, very important. And if she's still reluctant, let her call you.
I think you
Okay.
had the wrong translation.
Okay.
Sorry about another.
Listen, I was so many years in politics, and therefore the question is less relevant than the answer I want to give you. Okay? But I really mean it. People are needed. Okay? People are needed, period. Not just for the political immediate input. Civil war, where is it? Was the question, will it lead to a civil war? The question is maybe. Maybe. But the other question is, so what? And I would like politically and philosophically to address the questions from two different points of view with your permission. The first is, I think that the number one challenge of the leaderships of both sides, both the current and we fail, and the future we should not fail, is once a strategic national decision is taken for historic, profound compromise between the two nations, which means we, the Jews, have to compromise our dream for the biblical greater land of Israel. And the Palestinians, because of this compromise, will have to compromise parts of their idea for a total restoration of Palestine of pre-48. There will be a compromise of the dreams. The compromise is possible. What sounds like impossible, how you as a leadership impose the national decision over the opposition within your own camp. So once a decision to divide the land or rebuild the dreams or create a new paradigm, whatever the decision will be, then number one challenge of the Israeli leadership will be never to let any right-wing, eschatological, messianic, redemptive extremist to sabotage the national strategy by personal or sectarian extremism. The same will be right with the Palestinians and their own internal religious fundamentalism or nationalistic fundamentalism. We can help each other, we can support each other, we can enhance each other, but by the end of the day, it's a question of leadership and the integrity of the political process. The second is a bit more philosophical. And it is based on some of the writings of Hannah Arendt, which I'm very much into the logic of it, okay? When the new notion of nation, a nation-state, was born in Europe 250, 300 years ago, and all during the process towards the 20th century, there were two basic schools of thought. What is this definition of belonging to a nation? The French concept was, if you accept the values of the French Revolution, of the Constitution, citizenship, culture, etc., you belong. The German one was, it's about the blood system. I am not a blood Jew. I might be a bloody one, okay, but I'm not a blood one. In the sense, for me, my belonging is a belonging to a value system. I do not belong to a gene or to a genetic tribe. And therefore, for me, the whole conflict is not being perceived through the perspective of all of us versus all of them because we were born into this blood system. It is some of us and some of them who totally and absolutely believe and devoted for peace, comprehension, compromise, conciliation with all the difficulties. It is not that we see eye to eye, but the value system is the same versus some of us and some of them who are bitter, existential, and fundamentalist opposition to these values. So for me, it is some of us and some of them versus some of us and some of them, and not all of us and all of them. Once this will happen, if there will be a bloodshed, which I hate bloodshed, I love love. But if there will be a bloodshed, that we shoulder to shoulder, all of these people who would like to see a better future for our nations, and it is possible to have a win-win future for both of our nations. If we shall have it in such a way that the price will be that we have to oppose some of our blood relatives, I say the price is worthy. I don't endorse it, I do not promote it, I don't like it, I think it is preventable, but if this will be the only barrier between nowadays and a better future, I'll take this position.
Grazie.
Thank you, Professor Chantal Meloni. There was another question that had been asked and that she should answer. Yes, the question as to what should be done, what is the next step, what should our role be, what our task should be. Well, we want to close on a positive note, on being proactive in some way. I think that all the elements have emerged this morning, but if we want to briefly summarize things, well, I might say that as jurists, we should become engaged, therefore, from within, the people, the Israeli jurists and the Palestinian jurists, many of whom work in direct contact every day with the B'Tselem Association that works with the Palestinians and the Palestinian organizations that have recourse to Israeli lawyers. Well, they need to continue with their courage and all of their forcefulness to do this important piece of work, which is on a daily basis, day in, day out, question the legitimacy, the lawfulness of the decisions taken by the local government. And we, international jurists, we're not parties to the conflict, and we must not be parties to the conflict. We need to reassert the validity, the soundness of international law, the fundamental principles for the protection of human rights that we adopted in the very same year when we decided to allow that the Israeli state be created. While the Israeli state was being born, there was also, at the same time, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were being drafted and asserted. So we cannot deny what was so solemnly affirmed in these documents. And this year, it's 70 years. It's the 70th anniversary of both events. So since a component of international law is obviously the practice that is pursued by states, and the jurist opinion, that is, the positions adopted by the jurists, the positions they take with respect to the principle. Well, this is extremely important when we are faced with such violations that go against, actions that go against those very principles. So some international body, in perhaps an even coercive manner, should oblige these states to comply with the rights of the populations involved. Very well. Thank you. Thank you to our guests, to our Israeli guests, for their rich contributions, and thank Chantal Meloni. We have a break for lunch and we'll be back at 2:15. Thank you.